But it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for this session as we prepare for the second annual conference of plant doctors and plant health professionals. We wanted to review some of the highlights, the wonderful things that have happened with both our Doctor of Plant Health program at the University of Nebraska and the Doctor of Plant Medicine program at the University of Florida. And with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Gary Hine, who is the director of the Doctor of Plant Health program at the university. And he is the first director of the program, which started in 2019, if I recall correctly. And I'm sure he'll be telling us all about that. But Gary, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, Amanda, and welcome everybody. Good to see some of you. Anyway, the people I know, I guess it's good to see all of you, but or at least see your names. But at any rate, yeah, I'm not sure how much of a featured speaker I'll be. Amanda asked to try to provide a kind of an update of our program here at the University of Nebraska with the Doctor of Plant Health program. We have, I think, are small, but I think the impacts that we've had have been significant. We had through the program, we began again about a little over 10 years ago. Our first student started in 2010, and we have graduated 16 graduates. All of them got good jobs, I think, out of the gate when they started, and been able to follow their progress, I think, through the years. For most of them, or a few of them I've not been able to get regular updates on, but the gratifying thing is I think all of those that I've made contact with have been establishing very significant careers, having great success. One of the things that I have been surprised at, again, I thought the employment opportunities for these students would be very good starting out, but the degree of success that they've had actually surprised me. Students would come in the last semester of the program and say, I want to get a job and I want to get it in this location. And I'd tell them, well, that's not usually how things work, and try to buffer their expectations. But almost in every situation, they've been able to say, I want a job there, and they've gone and they've gotten a job there. And both from the standpoint of one of them's working in New York City. He wanted to go work in New York City. So he's a forester for the New York City Parks Department, park system. Another wanted to go work in RTP because his girlfriend just got into graduate school at Duke. And I said, well, that's not usually how it works out. He had 2 job offers and actually could have got a third or a fourth as well. So again, the success that they've had has been astounding. Certainly creating challenges. We're a modest size program. I would like to see us increase in numbers. Again, we've had 16 graduates. We've got 12 students in the program currently. We are going to be graduating, I think, a mess of them this May. Again, they've got plenty of work yet to do to finish up. I don't know that everybody is going to be able to complete it like I was expecting or hoping. But basically through May and through August into December, we'll probably be graduating over half of the students that we have. And it's been an interesting process. Internships have been going quite well. With the COVID situation we've had in the last year, it's been a little bit nerve-wracking, I think, from the standpoint of offering courses and things like that. But as we were approaching the summer last year, about this time and a little bit later, one of my concerns was, will we be able to offer assistantships or internships, I mean, for our students? And as it turned out, most of our students that were looking for internships got letters saying that they were required personnel, essential personnel in agriculture, and they were able to travel. We had students going out on internships, I think, in 6 different states across the country, from Washington to Arizona to Colorado, Nebraska, Michigan, and also a student working on an international internship which he primarily did via distance because he wasn't able to travel. So certainly the COVID situation has caused complications there, certainly for that internship, but also for the others, and the fact that even in the locations where they were limited by the amount of interaction they could have with the other ag professionals that they get exposed to on these internships. So, but I think to a person, I think every one of them had a very good experience, and it's gone. The internships, I think, went very well. So right now, trying to set up internships for the students that will be doing it this next summer. We won't have quite as many students, I guess, going out away from the program, but we are getting those lined up. And again, that is come to be probably one of the most valuable portions. And certainly, I think whenever I've talked about the program, I've certainly highlighted the idea of that these internships are critical to the process and to the learning process. And I think that's also been underscored very, very heavily in talking with students when they've had job interviews, is that oftentimes employers are quite surprised at the diversity of experiences that our students have had. And because they don't see that with students coming out of either a master's program or a PhD program, who are pretty much locked into doing one or two things or working in one or two very, very concentrated areas. So again, that's been I think a real strong asset to the program and to the students in bulking up their backgrounds and their capabilities for preparing themselves for initiating their careers. Through the last year with the COVID situations, it's been a very, very difficult thing. I don't know about Amanda, but in trying to recruit students, it's been quite difficult. Remote recruiting has been a challenge. I've done several remote recruiting events, and one of the problems that we have is that we're not known well enough. It's hard to do a remote recruiting event when nobody's really looking for you, and that's really even the logo doesn't bring in the type of numbers and contacts that you really want to have, because people aren't out there really looking for this type of a program because it's not existed before. And so that creates some tremendous challenges. If you're in a recruiting situation, a career fair or something like that, where you're standing at a table, people walk by, so they have the tendency to stop and ask what's going on or what you're doing and that type of thing. And that doesn't happen in a remote setting, so it's gotten to be very difficult. So we're actually struggling right now with students. I've also lost a couple of students from the standpoint that they're not anxious to do a remote learning situation. So it's been a difficult challenge, but we're doing some different things right now, trying to bulk up our success in bringing in students and that type of thing. So I think that's kind of a continual challenge, is bringing students in. I think there are a lot of students that are interested in this type of education. It's a matter of trying to convince them that it is a program that they can really leverage to establish a strong career path. And also, I think one of the things that I talk to them about is that we really want to encourage them to drive the program themselves, to drive the direction of their program, because again, we want them to use the program to develop the capacity for them to pave a career path that they really have a passion for and really want to make an impact as they go into the future. So I think that's some of the things that we have done for the graduates. I think graduates have gone in a number of different directions. It's been very gratifying seeing the success of graduates, particularly when they get promotions less than a year into their job. We've had a series of graduates that write me within the first 6, 8, 10 months that they're in a job and say, well, I'm in a new job. They just promoted me. And so it's been very gratifying. A lot of the reports I get back from the graduates are that they are just where they want to be. The characteristics of the students I think that we get in, I think the students that we get in have been very entrepreneurial in seeing how the program can really leverage their career and provide them benefits in the career direction that they've chosen. So I think with that, I will stop and offer up if anybody has any questions. I certainly would try to address them the best I can.
Gary, thank you so much for that excellent overview of the status of the program. It certainly is a challenging time. We share some of your challenges, of course, with just the distance. We are somewhat at high flex at the University of Florida right now with our courses instead of full distance, but it's still a challenge. And so does anyone have questions for Dr. Hine?
I always have questions. Hi, Gary. Really good to see you. It's been a while. I haven't seen your beard either, so that's very nice.
That's relatively new.
You know, it's just wonderful to see the successes you and Amanda have had with these programs. And I have so many questions, but one of them that always comes up is the relationship with the university, because you're not in a department, you're really kind of separate, but how is that working in your program?
Yeah, I think that's different than how it's done at the University of Florida. I guess I see it as an advantage in that I'm not associated with any particular department, so to speak, although my administrative appointment is 70%. My 30% is a research appointment that I have in entomology. But my research projects that I do, I deliberately chose those research projects basically to be a very interdisciplinary effect, because it is I'm working with in wheat on a mite that transmits 3 different viruses in wheat. And so I'm constantly, my biggest collaborator is a virologist in plant pathology, plant pathologist, the extension plant pathologist, the wheat breeder, the ARS geneticist. Again, all my research connections are cross-disciplinary. And but again, back to the program, the DPH program is not, again, specifically associated with any of the departments. We don't have as many departments as you. We've got agronomy and horticulture merged into a single department. Entomology is a separate department, and plant pathology is a separate department. And then the School of Natural Resources, we have a few faculty that are certainly teaching courses from the School of Natural Resources. But my direct report really is to the Dean of the College of Ag Science and Natural Resources. So I'm really kind of under her auspices. I do not report directly to a department head. I think that's a great way to do that. I know that Florida isn't that way, and maybe there are structural reasons why it can't be that way. But I do. If one thing I am concerned about at the university is we're getting a new budgeting system, and that's going to be relying more on departmental success in having students. And so the ownership of students may become more critical under that budgeting process. And if that's the case, then having students that are floating around from department to department and partial here, partial there, may be a little bit more of a concern. And I do have concerns about that, but I think it's worked well. And I've gotten good collaboration, good cooperation from, again, not as good as I would like, but certainly good cooperation from faculty and department heads in each of the departments that we interact with quite heavily. So.
Norm, does that answer your question? Did you have another question?
No, it answers my question. It's a very realistic way to look at it because of the structural aspects of universities. There are real limitations on how you can handle students and how you can get credit for students. And
Yeah.
so I agree. I appreciate your answer.
Additional questions for Dr. Hine? So just to give you a little bit more background, Gary, we also have on the line, we do have our Associate Dean for the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences here. Dr. Brendamil, would you like to say anything officially, while you are joining us here today?
Well, I welcome you all, and it's great for me to help facilitate, obviously the DPM program here at Florida, and I know the ties that it has to Nebraska as well, and being a former Nebraska alum, that's always a great thing from that standpoint, and these are unique, very unique programs. But they're fitting a very needed and necessary, niche, if you want to call it. I know universities struggle a lot, with the bureaucracy of going across, even departments within our own universities, much less across universities, and the struggles that puts up at times, and I'm working currently on a program that, if we can pull it off, will include the University of Illinois and the University of Tennessee and UF, and we'll see if we can cut through all the bureaucratic red tape and make that multi-institutional academic credential a possibility. And so I thank you, Gary and Amanda for, staying the course with these very, like I said, very unique programs, but very necessary, programs. And certainly I'm always willing to help where I can. And I certainly wish success to both of the programs as they move forward and evolve and change, as necessary. So just glad to be a part, and always available to help where I may.
Dr. Brendamil, thank you so much for your remarks. We really appreciate the college's support of the DPM program, and also, of course, the support for the Nebraska program. When Gary and I can actually attend in-person meetings, we do often space and recruit students together because, strangely enough, students that are in the Midwest don't necessarily want to come to Florida, and students that are in Florida in the South don't necessarily want to go to Nebraska. So it's not really much of a conflict of recruiting in my view. So we work together quite well with that. So we really appreciate your support. I also see that we have one of our key stakeholders, Mr. Ben Belusky from FNGLA, is on the line. Ben, would you like to say anything on behalf of the stakeholders that are supporting the DPM program?
Well, thank you, Amanda. I would just congratulate yet again Gary and you for the DPM programs that you are running. When you think of a couple of comments that were how structured universities are, and yet you come to the DPM program, and one of its hallmark strengths is the elasticity that it offers the students to explore areas they may not be necessarily familiar with, or to really drill down into areas that they find so fascinating. It really is one of the most well-rounded programs that I think land grant university can offer. And then for the students to take that and emphasize that in job interviews and combine it with the internships that, you know, they can get as part of the programs. I mean, just to leverage that elasticity to present themselves as well-rounded graduates looking for employment, I think it's phenomenal. And certainly that's what those in Florida's nursery and landscape industry who are hungry for you know, new employees, all the way from whether it's from the field worker up through you know, some of the labs that some of the operations have. I mean, it's, you come out of the University of Florida or Nebraska with a DPM degree, you're very marketable. So I congratulate the faculty, the administration, and universities, and particularly the students who are exploring this field. It has a lot of potential for careers, and it has a lot of present day and future needs in terms of the industry. So I'll stop babbling there. How's that, Amanda?
I thought that was great. And I don't ever think you're babbling, Ben. You did a wonderful job. Really appreciate your remarks. And I do have a few program updates, but before we move to that, I noticed that our chair of our alumni committee, Dr. Tim Durham, is on the line. Tim, would you like to say anything on behalf of the alumni?
Sure. Can everyone see and hear me now? I think I've activated everything appropriately.
Yes.
So yeah, the alums have been pretty active on that front. I hope there's going to be a good turnout this Saturday for the second annual meeting of plant health practitioners, etc. I had a very robust slate of volunteers to participate on the scholarship committee for the Agrio scholarship. I believe there were 12 to 15 of us, if memory serves, and it was pretty much a universal consensus that Hannah Tolton was the best candidate out of a very competitive field. So we were very pleased on that front to collaborate and participate as alums. But beyond that, I really don't have anything to add per se from the alumni front. We just, you know, we're sold on the application, you know, of this program. The general health practitioner model, like Ben said, is much needed, and there's no shortage of job prospects out there, like Gary indicated previously. So I think we're very well positioned for the future, you know, especially in terms of name recognition. You know, that was mentioned. Maybe there's a little bit of lack of name recognition, but increasingly I'm finding that is not the fact. I'm, you know, among professional societies, Entomological Society of America, APS, AHSA, you know, ASHS, the Tri-Societies, you name it, the name and brand recognition is really starting to materialize. And I think we're very well positioned to kind of piggyback on that for the future. And I hope, you know, other land grants will model what Dr. Agrios pioneered at UF and what, you know, Gary and company at UNL have pioneered as well.
Thank you, Tim. Really well stated. Really appreciate your support. And Tim has just been phenomenal in terms of leading the review of the applicants for the Agrio Scholarship, and also his leadership in planning for the virtual conference that we will have this Saturday. Now, we do want to return to an in-person conference, but we will do that when it is safe to do so. But the exciting thing that I noticed from the registrations is that we even have some of our international graduates who have signed up for the conference. So the virtual meeting will have some benefits in that regard. And we're so excited to have Mike Arts from FFBA as our keynote speaker. We have an excellent panel that Tim and Nicole Casuso actually co-organized a discussion panel, as well as, of course, celebrating Hannah and the Hannah Talton and the legacy of Dr. George Agrio. So we're really, really super excited about that. And so with that, I'm going to just share my screen, and hopefully you can see my PowerPoint. You can see it, and just have a few quick updates for you. As you know, you have to have a PowerPoint, right? Almost. No, not always. Sometimes it's better not to, but I know everybody's tired of having PowerPoints, but I just wanted to kind of remind us of some of where we were with the program and where we're going back to, because some of the students that are on the line right now haven't had the opportunity to participate in the great conferences and professional development opportunities that are just around the corner as soon as we can get a few more people vaccinated. And so this is actually kind of how our reunion gatherings started. Some of you probably remember this when we actually, Tim is there. In the fall one year, we started by thinking, we need to start getting the DPM students back together. I think this was from the fall of maybe 2018. And so this was our first gathering, really trying to bring alumni and students back together, talking about the program and really seeing where we were going in the future with the program. And we're really excited that we have 21 students right now. We actually, in this pandemic year, we have been able to admit 6 new students. And so some have started in entomology, and some are starting in environmental horticulture, and some are starting in plant pathology. But we're just really excited to have 21 students right now in the program. And we have 96 alumni. So in 2021, we will actually reach that 100 mark in terms of alumni. And we actually do have, I think, 4 graduates graduating in the summer of 2021. No one's planning to graduate in the spring, but we have 4 graduates that are planning for a summer graduation. And so this is where we were last year. We were having a lot of fun. And so students that weren't there, we're going to be back to these kind of events where we're, actually in person again. But we awarded our first George Agrio scholarship. And most of you already know that Dr. George Agrios was the first director of the Doctor of Medicine program. And he really spearheaded the effort to have the Doctor of Plant Medicine program exist at the University of Florida. It was really a big effort moving this degree program forward. And so some of the alumni, including Tim Durham and Mark, worked with the Martin Law Firm to have an initial gift for the George Agrio Scholarship. And that was really significant, moving us towards that gift, that endowment level. We also had the Agrios family. Here you can see Dr. George's Agrios' widow here, and his son and family as well. And so we had a really nice gathering. The Agrios family actually helped us kind of reach that 30,000 goal for an endowment. In order to have an official endowed scholarship in honor of Dr. George Agrios, we needed to reach 30,000. So we're still fundraising to kind of raise that fund so that we can have even more opportunities in addition to the scholarship. But I am pleased to report that we have raised $30,000 for the George Agrio Scholarship. And considering that we're a small program, interdisciplinary program, I think that's actually quite significant. Our first recipient was Sage Thompson. Here you can see Sage at the meeting last year. And so we really had a great turnout. We had about 70 people at this outdoor barbecue last year. Many of you were there. We had a lot of fun times. And we had donations from Agro Marilla, Syngenta, Land Back Agriculture, and FMC. So it was in addition to the Martin Law Firm. It was really a very nice event. We also had a conference. We had a couple roundtable discussions that were really informative and useful. And we had poster sessions, and it gave our alumni and students a chance to interact. And actually, Now both Dr. Morgan Byron and Dr. Eleanor Phillips are alumni, but at the time, Dr. Phillips was one of our students, and now she's, I think, on the line and also at the University of Tennessee in a diagnostician position. And Dr. Morgan Byron at the time worked for FDAC's DPI and has moved back to working for the University of Florida. So we had a great time interacting with our students and alumni. In terms of our recent graduates, Matt Borden graduated in the fall of 2020. This is actually him earlier in 2020 when he defended his master's. Adam Dale was his master's thesis and DPM advisor. And Matt has gone on to work, or he will be working with Bartlett Tree Services in North Carolina. Eleanor Phillips was very involved in so many things during her program here, but she was also one of our key instructors for our horticulture vocational course, where we partnered with Grace Marketplace, our local homeless low barrier shelter, and offer a horticulture course with Grace Grows, a nonprofit associated with Grace Marketplace. So there you can see Eleanor, and of course this was before the pandemic, but it was good times there teaching horticulture. Benjamin Waldow graduated in the summer of 2020. Of course, we were already at our mask at this point, and there you can see his advisor, Billy Crow. And Benjamin has moved on to doing postdoctoral research in nematology, but he had a few options upon graduation. Alex Gannon had his final internship with Grovin Farms, an olive farm in Alachua County. Currently, he's still the assistant manager with the Grovin Farms and looking at other opportunities where he might be moving further south because his wife has a position in South Florida. Morgan Pinkerton, who's on the line. Morgan actually started her extension position in Seminole County before graduation. And I think it's been a great fit for Morgan because during her program, she was able to do research, extension, all kinds of things that she's putting together into her program now. Sage Thompson immediately started working with APHIS as a risk analysis after graduation. And so that's a good first position for Sage. And like many of our graduates, I'm sure many of these graduates will soon have second positions, just as Gary indicated with the Nebraska graduates. Alicia Kelly is with Agmetrics in Florida, and she had a goal to pursue industry employment, and she has achieved that goal. And she was our first COVID graduate in the spring of 2020. Now, it should be interesting because in 2021, it looks like all of our graduations will be back to in-person. We'll have multiple graduations, but they'll be back to in-person. And so from 2018 to 2021, we've had several new students. Specifically in 2018, we had Kier Hamilton, Nick Goltz, and Brianna Whitman, Clayton Banya, and Heather Kellerman. Spring semester 2019, Julia Ricina. Summer semester 2019, Andy John Louise. Fall semester 2019, Chastity Perry, Alex Daylow, Hannah Talton, and Zach Eldred. Spring semester of 2020, Shannon McAmis. And then, as I mentioned before, we've had actually 6 students join in the 2020-2021 cycle. Brianna Benitez, Sarah Berkmeyer, Adam Pitcher, Abigail Prohofsky, Nick Denfield, and Lindsay Michael. And so, yes, some of our activities that we normally like to do, like our plant sales and the DPM student organization booth at Kanapaha, aren't happening this year because Kanapaha, the Botanical Garden Festival, isn't happening. But we're going to get back to some of those things. We're going to talk about some of those things we're going to be getting back to as soon as things get a little bit better. So we have a lot of faculty involved, a number of entomology and nematology, but also some of the research and education centers, particularly the Gulf Coast Research and Education Center. We have multiple departments, horticulture, environmental horticulture, plant pathology, and we have in the past had, there's a name change, but the School of Forest Resource and Conservation has also historically been involved. We've been really big. We have primarily focused on, I would say, in 2020 to address the recruiting issue. is we have actually produced about 37 videos on YouTube, the DPM YouTube channel, about the DPM program. These include alumni interviews, student interviews, what the students are doing when they're going out in the field and looking at things. And actually, this has helped with recruitment. I actually just had a communication with a student just last week where they initially heard about the program because of our increased social media presence that we've focused on in 2020. And we've had our Ecuador trips. Now, I don't know when we're going to be able to go back to Ecuador, but I'm kind of hoping for 2022. We'll have to see how that goes. Originally, we were on an odd year cycle, but obviously with the pandemic, we can't go back yet now. But we do have 3 memorandums of understanding with 3 different institutions in Ecuador. We've had 2 students actually complete internships with ESPOL in Ecuador. And, you know, as everything moves back to a new normal, we're hoping that we can continue to bridge those relationships with students as well. Some of the things we've done, even though we couldn't travel internationally this year, we still had an international workshop for tomato leaf miter identification, Tuta absoluta, with the Caribbean region. And many of our students were involved in that, particularly one of our new students, Sarah Berkmeyer, took a lead role in helping out with that. In the past, we've had these tremendous booth events, just like Gary was mentioning, where we're really trying to recruit students. So we really want to get back to that. You can see our fabulous academic advisor, Eliana. She's very good at recruiting students, and Arian Employer, some of our recent graduates, I guess a few years ago now. And this is one of our ESA meetings. I think this is actually the last in-person ESA meeting, Gary. So hopefully in 2020, hopefully later this year, 2021, we'll be in Denver, where we can actually promote our programs together again. Because I deferred the virtual booth fee until 2021, so we're hoping for that. This is in 2019 when Hannah went to Austin for the Agronomy Society of America meeting. This is also another good meeting for recruiting. And we've had students and alumni participate in APS, the American Phytopathological Society, particularly when the Southern Division was in Gainesville. This is one of our alumni, Chris Ferguson. Now Benjamin Waldow is also an alumni, but he was a student then. Ploy, Kurt McCulphin was a student at the time, but is now an alumni. And Carmen Palazzo, who is down with Syngenta in Vero Beach, and of course, Tatiana Sanchez, who is with Extension in Alachua County. And our student organization really looks forward to kind of getting back out there. This is, I think, the typical booth that this looks like Kanapaha, but we always have a student presence at Kanapaha and some other events as well. We've had our students interact directly with Extension. I think in Morgan's case, this interaction that she had with Jim DeVarelio in Bradford County really helped solidify her interest in Extension and help her pursue that position in Seminole County. And we're looking forward to a variety of internships that students can get back to. We actually had really great internships over the summer, despite the pandemic. Matt Borden went to Driscoll's, so he was our 3rd student to go to Driscoll's in California for an internship. Nick Goltz actually had a remote internship with one of our alumni, Allison Ryan Smart. He was originally going to go up to the University of Maine, where Dr. Smart is located, but instead he worked out something virtually where he was also working with Dr. Carrie Harmon here, and he could interact with some of Dr. Smart's extension programming efforts and do some other remote work with her because the in-person wasn't a possibility. I already mentioned that that Alex Gannon was able to do that local, really good on-farm internship with Robin, and so farms, and Benjamin Waldow was able to find both an industry and a local internship. So students still continued to have internships. I think the outreach efforts that our students do, particularly with Florida First Detector, where they learn about the importance of invasive species and the early detection of exotic pests, is important. And also that experience of reaching the youth and explaining to the youth the importance of agriculture, careers in agriculture, and interdisciplinary plant health education. And I've mentioned the Grace Grows course a little bit already. They're 2 of our here. Hamilton will graduate this year, and Sage Thompson graduated in 2020. I've mentioned the connections with Ecuador. Of course, Dr. Elizabeth Espinosa is one of our graduates and a lecturer at ESPL, where we had the IPM workshop. There's our very own Ben Valesky with some of our students at our previous events, such as the Tropical Plant International Expo. And we've had students at the FNGLA trade show. Always is a great event. And so when that is happening again, our students will be there as part of the IFAS overall presence and booth. And we really look forward to that. Here you can see some of our, at the time, students and alumni. And we've also had students participate in a variety of summits and educational events in recent years. And with that, I think that's probably enough for now. Now we can just have a chat if anybody has any questions.
I better ask a question before you call on me, Amanda.
Well, it might happen.
It might happen. There's so many great things that you presented, but I'd like to go back to a little bit of your organization and how it works. And you have an upcoming review of the program, which is, I know you're looking forward to. I was going to ask Gary, have you had a review, or are you going to have a review of your program, and how did it go, or how do you think it'll go?
Yeah, we did in 2019. We had a review team come in, and I thought it went pretty well. Recommendations were that I guess the biggest one was that I needed some help, and that hasn't happened, and that probably won't happen the foreseeable future anyway. But again, I think the reception was good. We do have, I think, reasonably strong support within the university. Certainly the dean of the College of Ag Science and Natural Resources is a strong supporter. But again, the program needs to establish, I think, a little bit larger footprint to really establish its stability, I guess.
It's a good comment for sure. I mean, I think we could all use more help. I can certainly relate to that, but we'll just keep rolling. I will say, I'm looking at the admissions for fall of this year very carefully, simply because it's necessary to be conservative and try to make sure we're supporting the students that we have right now. At the Florida program, we do try to keep the students on assistantships throughout their program, except perhaps when they're on internships. And that's more of a challenge right now in the current funding climate, but we're still moving forward as best we can.
Amanda, I think for the group here, it would really, if you could expand a little bit on that, I think it would be enlightening. Financing is difficult for all of us in higher education and our research programs and so forth. Your piecing together all kinds of ways to keep the program financed. Do you care to comment a little bit on that? I know you can't go on and on.
Well, some of it is helpful if, for example, some of our students are full-time employees where they can benefit from the employee education program. And of course, it does take students who are taking those benefits of an employee education program a little bit longer to complete the degree, but that's certainly one funding option, other than the graduate assistant funding. And with graduate assistant funding, there are some funds provided by the college, but I would say that the majority of the funds really come from faculty preparing grants for the stipends and the tuition waivers. Certainly, it's all important. We really do value the college funds, of course, as well. But I would say that the grants that students can be placed on for their stipends and tuition is foundational to the success of the program at the moment. I think probably because you turned her camera on that Eleanor would like to say something.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to share that I'll be having a symposium with speakers from not only the DPM and DPH program, but also a very enthusiastic graduate from the master's program that's very similar at the University of Georgia. So I'm really looking forward to that. This is my first symposium, so if you have any advice for me, I really appreciate it. But I also wanted to just share an anecdote from my time here at the University of Tennessee. The entomology and plant pathology departments, and to some extent, the plant science departments are very closely intertwined. In fact, the entomology and plant pathology department is the same department. And for my position here as a plant diagnostician, none of their students applied for the job, which I think kind of made some of the faculty here at the diagnostic center a little shocked, but it just goes to show how valuable this degree is in terms of really getting a lot of good hands-on experience. So very happy about that. They also wanted to know what it would take to start a sister program at UT. And while that would be a really fun project, I'm not sure if it's quite of a big enough university to do it. But they were very interested to learn about the DPH and DPM program. So I'm hoping a lot of their students will come to my symposium as well.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. I really appreciate those comments. And Eleanor actually achieved her position before graduation as well, which is a common, I guess it's a problem, but not really a problem because they're employed, right? But then the students have to find a way to finish their degree, but they're just so much in demand that many of our graduates do find work prior to graduation. Other questions or comments?
Yeah, Amanda, I had a question, and this ties into Eleanor's comments at Tennessee. So, you know, the DPM DPH model has been very successful, particularly overseas. And I was wondering if there's been any movement more on the domestic front in terms of establishing comparable programs, and if not, what can you attribute that to? Is it just kind of entrenched disciplinary, siloing?
Well, that's a great question, Tim. I would say I don't think it's quite as, I don't think there's another doctoral program overseas that I'm aware of. The master's program, I think there is one, maybe there's certainly been interest. I remember I even had visitors from Japan. We ended up talking on the phone because we couldn't, they were like over on the West Coast, but they wanted to call while they were in the States. But certainly the model is of interest internationally. Ecuador is also interested, but ESPAL in particular is a very small university. So likely they would start more with like a master's model. And I think the master's model is quite good for many locations. And Georgia has had a interdisciplinary master's since the 1970s. And I think Ohio State has a more recent master's. Eleanor, would you like to comment more on that, the master's and other thoughts on that based on your organization of this symposium?
I haven't actually talked much at length with the master's graduate who'll be talking. I'm planning on meeting with them some point before the symposium to learn more about their experience with it. They seem really excited about it. They were one of the first people to get back to me about being a speaker. So maybe that is a model that could be used by other institutions. I'm interested definitely to see what the shorter timeline was like compared to my experience.
Well, and I do think there is, obviously, I think there's value to both. I think a master's has value, but there's also value to the more intense doctorate program. I would guess from my interactions with people, maybe the biggest limitation might be opportunities to fund students. Gary, do you have other comments on what might be limiting other universities from picking up this model?
Yeah, I think, I don't know that I have any great insight into it, but I've certainly talked to other universities that people have asked questions about it. But I think the hesitancy is probably the same as the hesitancy of anybody when they start out a program, when the University of Nebraska started the program, is whether it would be successful in drawing enough students. And I think, there's just no question in my mind that, I think the biggest issue, and I think the first thing that comes up when I talk to other people at the university is funding. How do these students find funding? And I think that's a huge issue. And I think universities are hesitant to do that, in particularly in the current climate. But I think even with traditional graduate students, funding is becoming more and more challenging. I know here at the University of Nebraska, they're making some changes with our new budget process that is going to make it much more difficult for faculty to support graduate students because of tuition issues. And so there are some real challenges there. There are real challenges with students. I think my feeling, and this is a feeling I don't think that is held by many, to be quite honest, but if I can get a student in and get them in and out in 4 years with a doctoral degree, I see no reason why they should be going on for a master's and PhD to add in another 2, 3, 4 years in a degree. If that's their really goal, if their goal is to get out and to work professionally, that their biggest asset is to get out and start gaining additional experience. And if you take a master's PhD track, the time frame is about 6 to 7 years. And the biggest cost to a student in going to graduate school is the fact they aren't making any money. Even if they're on assistantship, they are making no money. And they are gaining no retirement investment. They are gaining no experience on the job. They are gaining no seniority within their work environment. So it is a significant cost to them to do that. Now, there's no question that the students make that decision, that the benefit of getting the degree is basically a launching pad for them to start a career. So I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to do that. And we absolutely do need these disciplinary researchers to be doing the work. There's no question. I don't question that at all. But again, I think this is a parallel track. And these students, one of the biggest advantages of these students is that they can get out, they have some experience. They don't get out with 5, 10, 15, 20 years of experience. They need to gain that once they get out. Now, I think the experiences that our students or our graduates gain once they get out and graduate is much better than most other graduate programs, because they have this tremendous breadth and this tremendous depth. And their experiences, I think, are much more valuable because very few things get by them because of that breadth and that depth that they have. So their experiences, I think, in my opinion, career-wise, are much more valuable year in and year out. But again, their value, their extreme value, will be seen after they've gained experience, and they need to get out and get that experience. So financially, again, we've had students that have come in and basically paid their own way through the whole thing. And there was one that did that, and he got a job. It wasn't his dream job, but he got out and got a job. And after, I think, 3 years on the job, basically had paid off all his student loans and decided he was going to change jobs. So because the job he was at, he was paid very well in the job he was doing, but it wasn't necessarily the job he wanted to continue for forever and ever. But so yeah, finances, there's no question financing is the biggest challenge. We do have a few students that are pursuing a master's degree with the program, and they are on assistantship. We have a student that is on a teaching assistantship. Basically, he's the crops judging coach, crops judging team coach. And actually, he's going to be leaving now, and we're looking for somebody to fill that position currently. We also have one of our students who's a full-time employee at the university. He's also leaving that job, so we're trying to fill that position as well with a DPH student. But again, that's challenging because we have to find people that have the right capabilities to do that. So again, there are different models that need to be done. I think the models that you've really focused on with trying to get students doing dual degrees at the same time is a great model. I think whenever we have faculty, and again, one of the challenges I have, and I think, to be quite honest, probably have not been doing a good enough job trying to get faculty to do that. But the faculty that have taken on our students have certainly benefited, and I think they've been very pleased with the work that their students have done. But also, I think the faculty, there's also been a number of situations where faculty have tried to poach our students to bring them into regular graduate programs because they've been so impressed with the student, they think they need to correct the situation for them and get them into a real graduate program, which irritates me a little bit. But it also, I know that a number of students that have done that have had that offer, basically have not taken up on that offer. And I think that's an indication that we're bringing in the right people because we're putting them into a career path that they feel comfortable with and that they feel the passion to try to pursue. So yeah, finances are huge. I don't know that I have any magic answers to try to address that. If we didn't have that to worry about, I don't think we'd have any trouble with getting numbers of students. But relating back to the number, or again, other universities taking it on, I think, if we were bringing in, if each of our programs were bringing in 20, 30, 40, 50 students in the program, there'd be other universities that would be coming in. And I think that's the limiting thing. They need to see success. And again, they're not necessarily looking at the individual success of our graduates, which I think tells a tremendous story, but they're just looking at numbers. And that's pretty much, I think, what's driving that.
Really, really well stated. Thank you, Gary, for that. And you've done a much better job with, I would say, recruiting the self-funded student that's willing to pay their own way. I do think it's a value because, in fact, the graduates can often in industry positions start out much higher than our students going through the traditional PhD postdoc route, much higher and sooner. So they could pay back those loans.
Yeah, I think if you look at a 7-year time window, a student that comes into a DPH or DPM program and goes straight through, pays their own way. And again, by paying their own way, basically, they still have opportunities. They're working and getting paid on internships. They can make a significant amount of money there. Some of them, or several of our students anyway, have taken on teaching opportunities and other work opportunities during the school year. So, but again, it doesn't cover the whole thing. They have to be comfortable with taking on some level of loan debt in the process. But if a student can get done in 4 years compared to a master's PhD track student that goes out in 7 years, in a 7-year time window, I would say financially that DPM, DPH graduate is going to be better off financially after 7 years because they'll have 3 years working at full salary, have 3 years of seniority in that job position. If they're working for somebody that offers them retirement options, they'll have 3 years built up in their retirement savings. And so again, after that 7-year window, they're going to be in much better financial shape than someone going through with a master's PhD track. However, if that student in the master's PhD track wants to do research and wants to focus on an academic career or something like that, again, we need those people and they have to be doing that. But it all comes down to what the student's real professional goals are, and they need to really need to articulate that when they're coming into the program.
Yeah, very good. That was, and strangely enough, I mean, we've actually had some of our students with just the DPM degree and not a dual degree actually take on academic positions. I mentioned Allison Ryan Smart. She's in a tenure track position in the University of Maine. She doesn't have a master's or a PhD or anything, and landed a diagnostician tenure track position. And I believe one of our summer graduates, Nick Goltz, has already landed a job at Connecticut as a faculty, and Tim Durham is faculty at Ferrum. So it's, yeah, I mean, the degree isn't necessarily designed for academics, but I would say if particularly an academic institution is looking for someone who could be strong in extension and teach a variety of subjects and be diverse, that's where the degree is really advantageous.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think, and the students sometimes ask, what jobs does this prepare people for? My response is, this degree prepares people better for 95% of the jobs that are related to agriculture than a regular PhD. And basically, what is that 5%? That 5% are disciplinary research positions. And so whether it's in academia or industry, I think we still need those, and they're still extremely valuable. But again, if that's people's passion, that's something they need to pursue. But again, if they're interested in working in the field, I think this is a degree that provides them better options, both from the standpoint of employment, but I think also from location. And I mentioned earlier about students coming out and say, I want to work at a specific place in a specific location. I also tell students that if you can find an agricultural community, there's a need in that community. I can guarantee there's a need in that community for someone of the talents of somebody graduating from one of these programs. Now, there may not be an open position there, but there is an employment need there. And if they're entrepreneurial enough to start up their own opportunities, they can find it and establish it. But there's also plenty of opportunities that they will find in employment in a lot of these other communities as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Additional comments or questions? It was a very good discussion.
Yeah, Amanda and Gary, just given the fact that we are analogous to an MD or a DO or a DVM program, or even a JD program in a lot of respects as a professional terminal degree, I don't think it's unreasonable to have some degree of debt load. I think that's to be expected. I don't think it's going to be a revelation for students necessarily. And like Gary was saying, if we could churn out degrees in 4 years, that gives them a 3-year leg up on the PhD competition. So in terms of paying back those loans and also contributing to retirement funds, etc. So absolutely. And also the fact that at the land grants, just the fact that we have that ready-made contingent of faculty members that could potentially support, a DPM, DPH type program just boggles my mind that more institutions are not taking advantage of that homegrown in-house talent, so to speak. When all you would need to do really is hire a director for said program. Just my 2 cents.
Well, it's still new. I know it seems like it's not new to you because you're one of the first earlier graduates, but when you think of the landscape of the university over time, it's still very new. So I'm hoping, as we move forward, maybe we can find a better way, how can we market ourselves such that similar to the DVM program, students are they know about it and they want to come here because the jobs are there. Because I can tell you, I have more requests for potential students to fill a job than I have students to apply for that job. Now, that's great for the few select students that we have graduating, but it just shows me that we're not really coming close to meeting the employment need.
And I would concur with that comment that I get more requests for our graduates than I do have applicants of students. And so it's interesting in the process. There's definitely opportunities there, but I might add too that, in my opinion, I think the other thing is, we say, well, all you need to do is add a director. You need to add a director, but you also have to have the infrastructure in place as well. And that infrastructure needs to include, I think, a contingent of faculty that have a strong commitment to applied work. That's critically necessary. I think you have that in Florida, particularly because you have a very large university. You have a lot more faculty than we have. I think we have that here pretty well, with the fact that, again, Nebraska is a very ag-centric state, so we have a very strong applied ag background in a lot of faculty that gets trained. I think sometimes as we think about hiring new faculty, they basically, when the older more applied faculty are retiring, I think we're really pushing the limit on trying to bring in faculty that have that applied background. And oftentimes it doesn't happen. We're getting bench scientists coming in. But again, I think Nebraska does have that capability. However, I do struggle at times. If one person retires, I struggle to find and replace that class. So we struggle from the standpoint of right now, 3-4 years ago, our faculty member retired who taught insect ecology. And so we've been struggling to try to get that course taught. We do now have a faculty member that'll teach it, but they're not teaching it till fall of 2022. And right now I have 2 students taking insect ecology distance from Montana State University. So those types of things that I've had to do to kind of work that up. But again, those are short-term solutions to these problems. And so I think, it's important to have the faculty support as well. And I think also the other thing that's critically necessary that I struggle with a little bit is finding mentor support for students as well. You could say, well, this is a professional program, so you don't need a mentor, you don't need a major professor, that type of thing. But they do need to have some mentor that's definitely working with them and centered with them somehow, so that they have some level of impact. And certainly we have a supervisory committee that fills that term as that purpose as well. But it's different, and since it is different, you've got to approach it a little bit differently. I think we've done all right with that. I think it does present some challenges. And again, it comes back to having faculty that will be willing to make the commitment to support those students in that regard as well.
That's an excellent point, Gary. I'd like to echo what you said about the mentoring. It takes quite a bit of time to mentor DPM students. And, I spend a fair amount of time just introducing the program to prospective mentors because we do have a high faculty turnover. So yes, we have a base of faculty, but it's not necessarily automatic. And, some faculty may be interested in mentoring students, some may not be, and some, they're not actually compelled to work with DPM students. It's a choice, and faculty have so many choices on their plate. So how do you approach that mentoring piece? It's really important.
Yeah, typically in universities with university faculty, there aren't many that are kind of sitting around waiting for things to do. or for additional things to do, I should say that.
Yeah, in a lot of respects, I think the land grants have strayed from their original mandate to do a lot of that field work that really can trickle down to the ultimate end user, the farmer and the consumer. But that's a discussion for another time.
And I would agree, and I think those universities would not be able to take on a program like this. So I think there really are a limited number of universities that could really tackle it because of that fact. But again, there are more than 2. There are more than 2.
Right, of the 50, and then some. Right.
They're more than 2, but I will also say the other thing that I think is unique about, and probably the Nebraska program is going this direction as well. But we do have some students that are more interdisciplinary and they focus on the field some, but they decide to go more the lab diagnostic route and the molecular route. So I wouldn't say that our program is removed from bench work. In fact, our plant pathology coursework is very heavy in the bench work. So our students are quite capable in those areas. And also students aren't graduating that can fill any of these regulatory needs. And that's why, I often have regulatory positions that I can't fill potentially that could be filled by a student.
Yeah. I think those are good points. That I certainly feel that no matter what the student's ultimate career goal is, that getting this laboratory experience is extremely valuable for them. And whether they're ever going to be in a laboratory or not, it provides them, I think, extremely valuable perspective on what's behind what they're going to be applying out in the field.
Very good. Dr. Lepla, any final parting comments before we close? Because I know you always have a comment.
I always have a comment. I don't have a parting comment. I think this discussion has been really, really valuable. We should do it more often. There's a lot to share, a lot of good thinking, wonderful progress. I've been sitting here just reminiscing in my mind about the Agrios days, in particular the lack of coursework. And now we have not only coursework, but distance coursework. That was a limiting factor in the early days. We just couldn't get enough courses for the students, enough training. And then the substantial internships is another one that's really evolved. Amanda, I know you have done a lot in Florida with that. They were a little bit weak, a little bit variable at first. Students were doing their best to find useful things to do and learn from, and we were trying to help them as well. But a lot of the logistical limitations prevented students from getting good, solid, substantial internships. So that's been taken care of. There's so many advancements. I think Gary mentioned and you did too, Amanda, the newness. Some of the younger folks are thinking this might be slow to evolve, but actually it's pretty much on track. It takes time for institutions to accommodate new ways of doing things. And in this case, I think it's driven by the tremendous success of the graduates and the demand. There is no way that this approach or this concept of plant medicine, plant health will stop expanding. It may morph into different shapes and different ways of accomplishing the outcomes, but that is the direction that the world is going, whether it's at the bachelor's or master's or PhD or what. Plant health is needed everywhere, and these programs are vanguard programs to accomplishing what is needed for this world.
Dr. Lepla, it's very well stated. And with that, I think we're going to go ahead and conclude. We've been a little bit past time, but the discussion was so good and it was quite a bit of fun. So thanks everyone. Thanks Dr. Hine for really your leadership of the Doctor of Plant Health program and joining us here today for this discussion. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you as well for inviting me, and it's good to see you all.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, Gary.
Yeah, take care.
Take care, everyone. Bye.